28 years ago, a young woman named Josephine Lark drove her green pickup truck down a county road in Beaufort County, South Carolina, turned onto a dirt access road at the eastern edge of the Harper property, and was never seen alive again. The truck was found 11 days later, parked behind a rusting equipment shed at the far corner of the farm. No keys, no personal items, no sign of a struggle, which meant nothing in the way that absence of signs so often means nothing. The engine was cold, the windows had fogged from the inside. Someone had driven that truck there and left it, and then the land had simply absorbed it, the way land absorbs everything it is given long enough to keep. The Harper farm was 500 acres of coastal plain farmland on the edge of Beaufort County, tobacco and cotton on the high ground, marsh and brackish creek on the low. The Harper family had owned it since 1921. Nobody questioned what happened on the Harper farm. That was the first problem. Josephine Lark was 26 years old, a licensed veterinary technician, and the eldest daughter of Calvin and Nora Lark of Yamasee. She had disappeared on a Tuesday afternoon in September of 1996 while conducting a routine farm call. 28 years passed. 2 Harpers grew old and died. 1 inherited the land. And then, in the spring of 2024, when a county drainage contractor arrived to repair a section of collapsed irrigation infrastructure on the farm's eastern field, his equipment hit something at a depth of 4 feet that was not soil and was not clay and was not anything that should have been there. What was found in that field would end 28 years of silence. But to understand what those years cost, and what they cost the Lark family specifically, you have to go back to Beaufort County in the autumn of 1996. You have to go back to who Josephine was, and what she was doing on that Tuesday afternoon, and why the land that swallowed her secret held it for so long. The South Carolina Low Country in the mid-1990s moved with a particular rhythm that anyone who grew up near the coast there would recognize. Slow mornings with the smell of salt marsh coming in off the creek. The particular quality of September light when the worst of the heat is finally broken and the air carries the first hint of something cooler coming from the north. Beaufort County was tobacco and shrimp and military and old money and no money at all. A place of sharp contrasts that had learned, over a long time, to look away from what was uncomfortable and carry on. Yamasee sat in the northwestern part of the county, a small town with a single stoplight and a train depot that still ran passenger service, and a population that had been roughly the same since the 1970s. The Lark family had been in Yamasee for 3 generations. Calvin Lark ran a small engine repair shop. Nora Lark taught Sunday school at First Methodist and volunteered 2 mornings a week at the county library. They had 3 daughters. Josephine was the oldest, and she was the one who had stayed. She had gotten her veterinary technician certification from the Technical College in Beaufort in 1993 and gone to work for Dr. Wallace Odom, whose small animal and large animal practice served most of the county's farms and had for 30 years. Josephine was good at the work in the way that some people are good at things that require both precision and patience simultaneously. She could read an animal's distress faster than most people could read a calendar. And she was not afraid of size or noise or the particular unpredictability of livestock in an unfamiliar situation. Dr. Odom told anyone who would listen that she was the best technician he had trained in 20 years. She drove a 1991 Ford Ranger, dark green, with a dent in the rear bumper from a backing accident at a loading pen in Colleton County that she had never bothered to fix. She kept a handwritten mileage log in the glove box because she was precise that way. She had a border collie named Pepper who waited at the front door when she came home and who, according to her mother, stopped eating properly for 2 weeks after Josephine went missing. She had a boyfriend she had been seeing for 8 months, a good-natured man who drove a shrimp boat out of Beaufort, and who would later say, in a statement to investigators, that he had never known anyone more grounded or more capable of taking care of herself, and that he had spent every day of the following 28 years unable to reconcile what he knew about her with what had happened. She was saving money to buy a piece of land. Not much, a few acres, enough for a small horse operation on the side. She had a notebook she kept in her kitchen drawer with calculations in it. What she was putting aside each month. How many months until she had enough for a down payment on something small. What the land prices were doing in the county. The calculations were patient and specific. The planning of a person who did not rush things and did not expect things to come easily, and was entirely at peace with both of those facts. On the morning of September 17, 1996, Josephine Lark checked in with the Odom Clinic at 7:45 a.m., confirmed her scheduled calls for the day, and said she would be back in by 4. Her last scheduled call was a routine livestock health check at the Harper farm. She never called back in. Dr. Wallace Odom called the Lark house at 5:15 p.m. on September 17th, when Josephine had not returned to the clinic and was not answering her pager. Nora Lark told him Josephine wasn't home. It was 5:30 when Nora said the first words of a sentence she would not finish for 28 years. Something is wrong. Calvin Lark called the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office at 5:45 p.m. The deputy who took the call logged it as a report of a missing adult female and noted that she had not been gone 24 hours. He told Calvin to call back in the morning if she hadn't turned up. She had not turned up by morning. The clinic's appointment log documented the Harper farm as Josephine's last stop. Deputies arrived at the Harper property at 8:20 a.m. on September 18th and spoke with Thaddeus Harper, 61 years old, the elder of the two Harper brothers who operated the farm. Thaddeus told them Josephine had come, done her inspection on 2 sick heifers, and left around 2 p.m. He hadn't seen her since. His manner was noted as cooperative and unremarkable. By September 19th, a search of the county roads in a 12-mile radius had found nothing. On September 28th, a farmhand employed by a neighboring property noticed the Green Ranger parked behind the equipment shed on the eastern edge of the Harper land and called the sheriff's office. The truck was in an area of the farm that Josephine had no reason to access for a routine livestock call. That area was used primarily for equipment storage. It was screened from the main farmhouse and the main road by a stand of loblolly pines and a long, low berm of pushed earth from an old drainage project. From the county road, you could not see it. From the farmhouse, on a clear day, you could barely see it. Deputies processed the vehicle. The mileage log was gone from the glove box. The pager was on the seat. One latex exam glove, the kind veterinary technicians wore during livestock examinations, was on the passenger floorboard, turned inside out. It was logged as evidence. It would not be tested until 2024. The Harper brothers were interviewed twice in the following 3 weeks. Thaddeus maintained his account. His younger brother Reginald, who handled the field operations of the farm, said he had been in town on the afternoon of September 17th and had not been present for the vet call. He said he returned to the farm around 4. His account was consistent across both interviews. No arrest was made. The lead investigator on the Josephine Lark case was Detective Marcus Webb of the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, a 12-year veteran with a reputation for thoroughness that had earned him a quiet respect in the department. Webb worked the case hard in the fall and winter of 1996. He noted, in internal memos that would become significant later, that the Harper brothers' access to the eastern field area, the location where the truck was found, was not adequately explained by either of their accounts. He noted that Thaddeus Harper had declined, without legal obligation, to allow a search of the farm's outbuildings. He noted that the inside-out latex glove recovered from the truck was a detail inconsistent with a veterinary technician who had completed her work and left voluntarily. What Webb did not have was a body. Without physical evidence connecting either Harper to Josephine, the investigation stalled in the way that investigations stall when the land is large and cooperative and holds its secrets close. The institutional failure in this case was not a failure of effort. It was a failure of authority. In late October 1996, Webb requested a warrant to search the Harper property comprehensively, including the outbuildings and the fields. The warrant application was reviewed and denied by the county magistrate on the grounds that the evidence presented was insufficient to justify the intrusion on private property. That denial was appealed. The appeal was denied in January 1997. The Harper farm was, by the standards of the county, a substantial operation. The family had deep roots and established relationships with the people who made decisions in Beaufort County. That was not documented in any case file. It did not need to be. Nora Lark drove to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office the week after the warrant was denied and sat across a desk from a department administrator and told him what she believed. She had the calm, clear-eyed manner of a woman who had decided she was beyond the stage of asking for things. She was stating facts. She drove home. She made supper. She called Josephine's name in the kitchen the way she had done every evening for months, out of habit, out of refusal to stop. Marcus Webb transferred out of Beaufort County in 2001. He accepted a position with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division that he later said he took partly because he needed distance from the cases he couldn't close. He kept his notes on the Lark case. He kept the Harper's names in a file folder he never threw away. By 2003, 7 years had passed since the Green Ranger was found behind the shed. Reginald Harper had taken over primary management of the farm after Thaddeus suffered a stroke that left him partially incapacitated. The eastern fields were in tobacco. The equipment shed still stood. The county road still ran past the loblolly pines. Nora Lark organized a small remembrance every September 17th at the First Methodist Church in Yamasee. She lit a candle and read from the 23rd Psalm and said Josephine's full name 3 times, which was a practice she had started in the 2nd year and continued without explanation to anyone. She said that saying a person's full name out loud was the least you could do for them. Josephine Ann Lark. Josephine Ann Lark. Josephine Ann Lark. Calvin Lark's health declined steadily after 2006. He told his middle daughter in the final months of his life that the worst thing about dying was not finishing, that he would not be there to know. He died in 2009 without knowing. Nora kept the September candles burning for him too. After that, by 2012, 16 years out, Thaddeus Harper had died. Reginald inherited the farm outright. He continued to operate it. He continued to live in the farmhouse where he had lived his entire life, in the low country, in Beaufort County, with the loblolly pines and the eastern fields and whatever was beneath them. By 2019, the neighboring farms had largely converted to different operations or sold out to development interests. Beaufort County was changing faster than it ever had. The Harper Farm, 500 acres, was one of the larger remaining working agricultural properties in the area. Real estate developers had approached Reginald Harper twice about the land. He had declined both times. In 2021, Josephine Lark's former boyfriend, now in his mid-50s, still living in the Beaufort area, submitted a letter to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office asking whether the case file could be reviewed in light of advances in forensic technology. He had written a version of this letter every 5 years since 2001. The 2021 letter was the fifth one. This time, Detective Lieutenant Sandra Cook of the county's cold case unit wrote back. Every case on this channel represents months of research, tracking down records, verifying timelines, and making sure the people in these stories are treated with the care they deserve. If you want us to keep doing this work, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. We read every one. Now, let's get back to the Harper farm. The case file review began in March 2022. Detective Cook pulled every document Marcus Webb had generated in 1996 and 1997, including his internal memos about the warrant denial and the Harper brothers' accounts. She noted, as Webb had noted before her, the inside-out latex glove. She submitted it for advanced DNA extraction using a low-copy number technique, a method that can develop a genetic profile from trace biological material too degraded or too small for standard analysis, working from the interior surface of the glove that had been protected from environmental exposure for 28 years by the simple fact of being turned inside out. The glove had been evidence since September 1996. It had never been tested. Low-copy number DNA analysis did not exist as a practical tool until the early 2000s. The technology had been waiting 20 years for someone to use it on the right piece of evidence. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Forensic Lab completed their extraction in September 2023. Detective Cook was at her desk on a Wednesday morning in October when the results came through. She read them. She sat still for a moment. Then she picked up the phone and called Marcus Webb, retired, at his home in Columbia. He answered on the second ring. "Marcus," she said. "The glove." He was quiet for a moment. "Which one?" he said. She told him. She told him all of it. Reginald Harper was 78 years old in 2024. He had lived on the Harper farm his entire life. He was a deacon at a Baptist church in Beaufort. He was known in the community as a deliberate, private man, not unfriendly, simply contained. He had never married. He had no children. His name had appeared in the original case file as a peripheral figure who was not present on the day in question and who had cooperated with investigators. His alibi for the afternoon of September 17, 1996, had been accepted without contradiction and never revisited. What the DNA profile extracted from the interior of the latex glove established was a match to a reference sample obtained through a court order from Reginald Harper in November 2023. The profile was his. The glove had been worn by Reginald Harper. The glove had been in Josephine Lark's truck. The glove had been inside out, which meant it had been removed after use, not dropped. Not accidentally left behind, but taken off and left. Detective Cook and 2 SLED agents applied for a comprehensive search warrant of the Harper property in December 2023. This time, the warrant was granted. Ground-penetrating radar surveys of the eastern fields were conducted over 3 days in January 2024. On the 3rd day, the radar recorded an anomaly at approximately 4 feet below grade in a section of the eastern field near the irrigation line, an area of disturbed subsurface density consistent with a historic excavation that had been backfilled and compressed over time. In March 2024, the county contracted for drainage repairs in that same section of field. On April 9th, the contractor's excavator hit something at 4 feet. Detective Cook was on site. What was recovered from the Harper farm that April morning was brought to the State Forensic Lab in Columbia. Forensic analysis confirmed identity through dental record comparison within 72 hours. The next call Sandra Cook made was to Nora Lark, who was 81 years old and living in a care facility in Yemassee. Reginald Harper was arrested at the Harper farmhouse on the morning of April 14, 2024. Two deputies and Detective Cook arrived at 7 a.m. It was a clear April morning, the marsh grass still green along the creek, the loblolly pines casting long, early shadows across the road. Harper came to the door in his work clothes. He looked at the officers. He looked at Detective Cook. He said nothing for a long moment, and in that silence, everything that had been held in place for 28 years became still. The way a held breath becomes still right before it is finally released. He was charged with murder in the first degree. He was held without bond. At a preliminary hearing in June 2024, the state presented the DNA evidence, the ground-penetrating radar survey, the original case documentation, and Marcus Webb's 1997 memos, the ones that had named the Eastern Field as an area of interest and been ignored for a generation. Webb attended the hearing in person. He was 70 years old. He sat in the gallery and did not look away. Reginald Harper entered a guilty plea in September 2024. He was sentenced to life in prison. He made no statement. He had said nothing of substance from the moment the deputies arrived at his door to the moment the judge read the sentence, and in 28 years before that, silence had served him well enough. It stopped serving him when a latex glove turned inside out held 28 years of truth against the light. Josephine Ann Lark was 26 years old. She kept a mileage log in her glove box and a notebook of land calculations in her kitchen drawer and a border collie named Pepper at the front door. She could read an animal's distress faster than most people could read a calendar. She was saving for a few acres of her own, patient and specific, and in no hurry, because she understood that the things worth having took time, and she was entirely willing to give it. She drove out to the Harper farm on a Tuesday afternoon in September to do her job. She did not come home. Nora Lark, when she was told the news in April 2024, was quiet on the phone for a long time. Then she said, "I always knew she didn't leave. She would never have left without telling us." Then she said, "I want her brought home." And she was. The September candles at First Methodist in Yemassee still burn on the 17th, but they burn differently now. Josephine's two younger sisters have taken over the lighting. What was once a vigil kept in hope is now a memorial kept in knowledge. There is a difference, both sisters have said, between hoping and knowing. Knowing is heavier and lighter at the same time, and it is the thing their mother waited for and got. Marcus Webb said in a newspaper interview after the sentencing that the experience of sitting in that gallery and watching the guilty plea had taught him something about how long an institution can take to correct itself, and what that lag costs the people on the other side of it. He said that Nora Lark had told him something was wrong in 1996, and she had been right, and the system had moved too slowly to deserve the credit for the outcome. The outcome belonged to a glove that held its evidence for 28 years, and a detective who thought to test it. There are questions this case leaves open. Reginald Harper spent 58 years as a deacon and a community member while keeping a secret that destroyed a family. Does a lifetime of apparent decency change what justice means when it finally arrives? What does it say about the 1996 warrant denial that Marcus Webb was correct about the Eastern Field and was told the evidence was insufficient? And who bears the weight of those 28 years? And what does it mean to you that the thing that finally broke this case open was a glove that someone turned inside out in haste, thinking no one would ever look closely enough at what was on the inside? Leave your answers below. The people in these comments carry these questions seriously, and this community is worth being part of. Justice came for Josephine Lark after 28 years underground. Stories like hers exist because the evidence waited and one person finally asked the right question. If you believe the right questions are worth asking no matter how long it takes, subscribe. More cases are in the description below. Thank you for watching.